Israel is on the path to becoming a pariah state, like South
No,
Africa
this
once
is
was.
true. This is true.
It's true, you accept it.
Of course.
Let me ask you, how are people responding to the humiliating way food was distributed yesterday? Not even 24 hours ago, yesterday, by the Israeli endorsed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. To many people who saw that footage and were playing it on screen as we now speak, the Israeli government seems to be humiliating the people of Gaza. It was treating them like animals. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 swarmed to try and collect food because it was the insistence of the Israeli government that only the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation can give it out. They have no experience, no training, no skill. The UN was deliberately left out. Chaos was created. Are people in Israel happy with that? That the blame and responsibility will
What
fall?
do you think that they are happy? Do you think that they are happy? You don't think that they are happy? People can see these pictures and say, it is not my fault.
But the blame and the moral responsibility will fall on the shoulders of Israeli society for not doing more.
I agree with you. And this is why we should do more. What I would like to see, I would like to see a visit of the most important leaders of this world coming to Jerusalem, coming to Ramallah, talking to both sides, and say enough is enough. We, like you, don't want Hamas around, but we do want the Palestinian leadership, the legitimate leadership of the Palestinians, negotiate with Israel about a solution.
When you say you want the most important leaders of the world to come to Israel, are you saying people like Starmer, Macron, Trump,
Exactly.
German Chancellor must come and personally negotiate between Israel and the PLO?
Exactly.
Why is
Exactly.
Israel capable of doing it on its own? Why can't Netanyahu knock on the door of the PLO? They're 10 miles away in Ramallah.
He doesn't want. He doesn't want.
That's the problem. He's the problem.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Israel's re-invasion of Gaza has not only faced eloquent criticism internationally and in particular from its Western friends, but increasingly it's also come under sharp attack at home. Former prime ministers and award-winning columnists have strongly condemned the re-invasion, calling it a strategic disaster and even a war crime. Haaretz newspaper has gone one step further and excoriated Israeli society for not speaking out against the re-invasion. The newspaper says nothing in Gaza evokes any guilt. Joining me from Tel Aviv to talk about the re-invasion and the condemnation it faces is Israel's former Minister of Justice and Religious Affairs, Yossi Beilin. Mr. Beilin, I want to focus this interview on Israel's re-invasion of Gaza. Already, nearly 54,000 people have been killed, of which 4,000 were killed after the ceasefire ended in March. Nearly 120,000 are injured, and perhaps 2 million are hungry and starving. Against this background, how do you view the re-invasion?
Well, I believe that the main issue is the morning after. From day one, after the horrible massacre of Hamas on October 7th, in 23, the question was, what do we want to happen in Gaza the morning after? The morning after is the after the retaliation. And I believe that most of the Israelis thought that the war against Hamas will not take long. By definition, if a regional military superpower like Israel is retaliating against a terrorist organization, the numbers are not equal. And of course, not all the tens of thousands of people who were killed were innocent people. Most of them were terrorist combatants. And nevertheless, many innocent people were killed, among them many children, because, as you know, the Gaza Strip is a kindergarten. Most of the people who live there are children. So if you retaliate, you also regretfully punish innocent people and innocent children, and this has to end. Now, most of the Israelis want to end this war. About 70% of the Israelis, week after week in the public opinion polls, say that Israel should end the war and they go for the full release of all our hostages. Little bit less than 60 people are still hostages in the hands of Hamas. It is crazy. So what I'm asking myself is, what should happen on the morning after? Because once you know what is happening in the morning after, you can in an easier way end this war. Since the demand is to end the war, release all the hostages, and get rid of the leadership of Hamas, who should leave the Gaza Strip by immunity or whatever to another country. That is the whole story.
But Mr. Beilin, the morning after isn't happening. What is happening instead is a reinvasion of Gaza after a ceasefire that lasted for a month and a half. The Israeli government has reinvaded Gaza. It's killing people again. It's air-bombing people again. How do you view this reinvasion?
Because, well, I'm of course against it, but not just by stopping everything. I need the morning after. If I have the morning after, I don't need the continuation of this unneeded war. And the problem is that rather than helping both sides, I mean not Hamas in Israel, but the PLO in Israel, to end the war, to begin negotiations about a permanent agreement, which will allow other countries to enter the region and to help.
I'll come to the morning after in a moment's time.
No, don't.
Let's focus on what's happening now. I'll come to the morning after later. Ehud Barak.
No, my dear friend. The point here is that the war is not separated from the morning after. Once we have the morning after plan, we don't need a war, or the government will not need a war.
Prime Minister doesn't talk about the morning after. He's not prepared to. He's only prepared to talk about the war.
Exactly. And here is the point. The world, rather than saying, hey, you cannot refrain from dealing with the morning after more than a year and a half. What you have to do is to talk about the vision of the morning after. You are running away from it because you know that eventually it will be the partition of the land. And you don't want the partition of the land, either ideologically or because of your strange members of coalition. Okay. Now, rather than that, the world is saying, we will put sanctions on Israel, we will boycott Israel, we will recognize the Palestinian state.
Let me interrupt you at that point. I want to put to you not what the world is saying, I want to put to you what your own former prime ministers are saying. Ehud Barak, in whose government I believe you served for 2 years as justice minister, has in an article for the Financial Times called this a strategic disaster. He says the pursuit of a total victory over Hamas is a mirage.
Most of the
Another former
Israelis, as
prime
I
minister,
said to you,
Ehud Olmert, another former prime minister, has says this is a war crime, a strategic disaster from Barak, a war crime from Olmert. To what extent are they correct in your eyes?
as I said before, 70% of the Israelis want to end this war. It is not just some voices in the desert that you pick. No, most of us want to end this war. It looks endless. It is very expensive in money and life for both sides. People are serving in the army in older ages. They are leaving their families. They are leaving their jobs. I mean, airways companies are leaving Israel. You know, it is a disaster for us.
But the
And this
war
is
is not
why most
ending.
of the Israel.
Why is
Exactly.
public pressure not bearing on your prime minister to force him to end the war? If 71% of the country want the war to end, why is it not ending?
Okay, this is now a political question. And there is a very clear answer. If he ends the war tomorrow, the extremists will leave the coalition and he will have no coalition. So, what I'm suggesting is two things. I'm suggesting that with all our reservations from Netanyahu, that the center left should join his government, replace the extreme right, and insist upon the end of the war, of course, the release of the prisoners and the beginning of the talks on the morning after. This is, I believe, what should be done. And I would like to see the world helping us, just a moment, helping us in that, rather than trying to put pressure on Israel on something which will not happen
Well,
if
just
we
a
don't have the
moment. The
morning after.
world is doing its utmost to help you. Ehud
No,
Barak,
no,
let me finish.
no, the
Let me
world
finish.
is not
Let
doing
me finish.
enough.
Let me finish. The world is doing its utmost to help you. Ehud Barak, writing in the Financial Times, claims that President Trump has threatened to abandon Israel if Israel doesn't end the war. That's a threat from the most important man in the world. France, Britain, and Canada have demanded that Israel renew humanitarian aid or face consequences. Britain has suspended trade talks, and Gideon Rackman, writing in the Financial Times, one of the most influential Jewish international columnists in the world, has said the Israeli government's actions in Gaza are indefensible. The world is pushing Netanyahu with his criticisms to act sensibly. He refuses to do so.
It won't help. It won't help. What is done by the world is not helpful. I mean, I can understand it. I see the pictures. It's awful. One cannot be indifferent to these pictures of the suffering. And nevertheless, all these acts are not enough. What I would like to see, I would like to see a visit of the most important leaders of this world coming to Jerusalem, coming to Ramallah, talking to both sides, and say enough is enough. We, like you, don't want Hamas around, but we do want the Palestinian leadership, the legitimate leadership of the Palestinians, negotiate with Israel about a solution.
When you say you want the most important leaders of the world to come to Israel, are you saying people like Starmer, Macron, Trump?
Exactly.
German Chancellor must come and personally negotiate between Israel and the PLO?
Exactly.
Why is Israel
Exactly.
incapable of doing it on its own? Why can't Netanyahu knock on the door of the PLO? They're 10 miles away in Ramallah.
He doesn't want. He doesn't want.
That's the problem. He's the problem.
Okay. Okay. When you put pressure on Israel, thinking that Netanyahu will submit to the pressure and will say, okay, I'm ending the war, I'm going to find a political solution, it will not happen because he wants to remain a prime minister by all means. And if he does that, the right will not be with him. So you must think about what can be practically happen rather than writing articles with all due respect. And this is to assure his term until October 2026.
The
This is
problem,
it.
Mr. Beilin, goes further and deeper, and I will quote the award-winning columnist of Haaretz newspaper, Gideon Levy, who you have told me in the past is a very close friend of yours. He says there is a second problem, not just the obduracy and obstinacy of Netanyahu, but the heartless lack of compassion and guilt on the part of the Israeli people. Writing in Haaretz on Sunday, 3 days ago, he said, nothing in Gaza evokes any guilt. All of Israel's society lacks basic humanity. He says there is no Israeli figure whose sleep is disturbed by the children screaming in terror and pain. Tell me, let me make that personal. Is your sleep
You are.
disturbed when you hear the cries of pain and terror from the children of Gaza? Because that's what Gideon is saying. Israeli society has shut itself, it lacks compassion.
Nonsense. Nonsense. He is a good friend of mine. Did he check every Israeli? Did he read all the papers? Just look at the papers of today, and you see that there are so many articles about this suffering. He says it is not enough, maybe. It is. He says that the TV stations don't show it enough. As that it is shown in the world, he is right. But to say that people don't care, it's nonsense. Nonsense. Look what happened with Golan. You know what he said about the suffering of these people. You
I
know
know
what
what he
happened
said about Israel. Let me quote him to you, and I'll say for the sake of the audience that he's a former deputy chief of staff. He may be a fringe leftist today, but he's a former deputy chief of staff with very good standing in the army. He said,
and he is not a fringe leftist today. He's
okay,
a centrist.
let me quote what he said. Israel is on the path to becoming a pariah state, like South
No,
Africa
this
once
is
was.
true. This is true.
It's true, you accept it.
Of course. Of course, and he is not a marginal guy in Israel. He's very popular today. He, according to the public opinion polls, he is the third party if tomorrow we have elections. And I think that he is expressing the views of many people. This is the question, but again, the question besides whether or not we are mourning the situation, we are seeing the suffering of the other side, we cannot accept it, and so on and so forth, is what can done politically
I'll come
in
to the
order to
politics
change the
in a moment's
situation.
time. Let me ask you one more question about the feeling, attitude, and response of Israeli society. You said Gideon Levy's excoriation was nonsense. So let me ask you, how are people responding to the humiliating way food was distributed yesterday, not even 24 hours ago, yesterday, by the Israeli endorsed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? To many people who saw that footage and were playing it on screen as we now speak, the Israeli government seems to be humiliating the people of Gaza. It was treating them like animals. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 swarmed to try and collect food because it was the insistence of the Israeli government that only the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation can give it out. They have no experience, no training, no skill. The UN was deliberately left out. Chaos was created. Are people in Israel happy with that? That the blame and responsibility will
What
fall?
do you think that they are happy? Do you think that they are happy? Gideon thinks that they are happy. People can see these pictures and say, it is not my fault.
But the blame and the moral responsibility will fall on the shoulders of Israeli society for not doing more.
I agree with you. And this is why we should do more. And what we can do is political. I mean, I'm all with those who are criticizing us for not doing enough. If you don't allow trucks, then they starve. If you allow trucks, then they are fighting each other, and they don't get enough food, and you don't know how to deliver the food because you are not an expert, as you say. I understand it all stems from one thing, that we are there, we should not be there. If we are there, we are responsible for their well-being. If we are not there, it is the responsibility of the institutions in the world, and we should not be there.
One more question before I come to the politics. I accept the politics is key, but one more question. Where in this messy, horrible situation are your hostages? Doesn't this re-invasion, which is continuing every single day, place their lives in grave danger? Ehud Barak has gone on record to say renewed fighting will condemn even more hostages to death. Does Netanyahu not care about the hostages? Is public opinion
again
to influence him on the hostages?
you are citing articles and speeches of people in Israel. They are not lonely voices. I mean, if I told you that 70% want to end the war and to release the hostages, then this is the clearest answer. Almost all the Israelis prefer the release of the hostages rather than to continue the war.
Then let's come to that critical question. If 70%, and you're quoting a recent poll, I'll point out to the audience, if 70% of Israel want the war to end, they want the hostages returned, how is it that the Prime Minister and government of a supposedly democratic country refuses to respond? Is it simply because he's clinging to office, because otherwise his government will fall apart and otherwise he'll have to face corruption charges personally? Is that the only explanation?
Well, he is facing these charges almost every day in court, as you know. He's spending hours and hours every day in court, which is also a very, very strange situation, I would say. But yes, I mean, it is a democracy. It is a democracy which is facing a very big challenge of those people in power today, but it is a democracy. And democracy
The democracy
cannot,
for Jews, not for
just
Palestinian Arabs. Let's be honest.
no. This is not for the Palestinian citizens.
Not for them.
I beg to differ. There are
Central point. Are you today appealing to people like Macron, Starmer, Merz, Trump to help you? Are you saying
Yes.
that we can't change our government's thinking? Please come and do it for us?
I believe that they cannot change the government for me. But what I want them to do is to insist upon the issue of the morning after. And then we, the center left, should fill the place of the lunatics in the government. This is my request. I don't want to topple. I mean, I would like to see Netanyahu out of the government, but I'm not calling for toppling the government. I'm saying, okay, he has a year and a half to go. Let us allow him to fulfill this, to end his term, to get our support, even if we don't really support him wholeheartedly, in order to put an end to the current situation, release their hostages, end the war, but talk politically about the morning after, about the permanent solution.
Is your center left prepared to listen to you? Before we come to the
Yes.
West, is your own center left prepared to support Netanyahu?
It's a good question. I cannot speak on their behalf. And I believe that they need an international atmosphere in order to do that, because they are much more responsive to the world than Netanyahu.
It seems to me that you face an absolutely hopeless situation and the war is going to continue. Innocent people in Gaza are going to die. Israel is going to get a bad name. And people like Gideon Levy will be excoriating Israeli society again and again and again. It seems to me a hopeless situation. There is no way forward.
I'm not hopeless. I'm hopeful because of one thing. I know my people.
But your people aren't responding. That's the problem.
They are responding. They are responding. They are demonstrating every Saturday at least. They are writing articles. They are talking in the media endlessly. And they don't want to see the current situation going on. They don't want it.
All right, Mr. Beilin, let's leave it there. It seems to me that you face a very tragic situation. You can see that iniquitous harm is being done. Israel is getting a bad name, but the government refuses to change its ways, and there's very little you can do to make the government change. That is the crisis you face, and there doesn't seem to be an easy solution. Unless, of course, the West is prepared to step in and respond to your appeal and help you, and unless, of course, the left, which so far shows no inclination of wanting to help Netanyahu, is prepared to step in and help as well. That's the only possibility.
Right. But other than you, I'll call it a very challenging situation.
All right. I'll agree with that term. Extremely challenging. I thank you for having made time for me. I thank you for your analysis. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.